Thakshak to deliver his talk. Please.
Good morning to all of you.
Good morning, sir.
I really want to thank you all for inviting me here for a small talk on entrepreneurship. And I would like to particularly thank Dr. Singh and Mr. Vijay Rathi for being so generous in inviting people like me here to such a youthful session of an audience. To starting off on being on entrepreneurship, I would like to suggest one thing. Rather than having it as a theoretical session, I would like you to be more interactive as on your questions about entrepreneurships, your doubts, and rather than me just talking to you, telling you what are the challenges of being an entrepreneur, what are the attributes of an entrepreneur. So I would start off by, I don't know, you must be, you being such a nice, college students, so you must be knowing about entrepreneurship. The definition that, because I being an entrepreneur, I never got into the definition of entrepreneurship till yesterday. And the best definition that I could gather from the internet was through Wikipedia, that said in precisely, the entrepreneurship is turning innovation into economic goods. And to be very frank, if I knew right from the start that that is the definition of entrepreneurship, I would have been very proud to start off with. For us, for me as an individual, entrepreneurship is something that appeals to me when it comes to my own creativity. And while there are a number of attributes that could be given to an entrepreneur, for me the best attributes for an entrepreneur are innovativeness, that you need to have this blend. I mean, I don't say that right from the beginning you could have innovation as a blend of mind. But then you should always look for innovation when you are starting off your own venture. There would be a number of ideas that you would be flooded with. But then the only virtue which I think you should differentiate between different ideas is what kind of innovation that particular idea is bringing to the table as compared to the traditional way of doing business in that particular industry. The other attribute of an entrepreneur that I feel is creativity, that how creatively you can improvise that idea. And creativity should not be limited to the idea and the concept, but it's a the pre-qualifying criteria for being an entrepreneur. Because once into the business, there would be many challenges, and it is only your creativity that can help you overcome those challenges. So even finding the solutions, you need creativity, because traditional solutions won't work. The other aspect, as we were discussing with Madam in a very engaging session upstairs, was that of risk-taking. You can't be an entrepreneur if you don't have a risk appetite. And when I say risk appetite, I mean from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, from individual to individual, risk appetite would differ. For me, I'm more on the borderline of being recklessly risk-taking person. But then risk-taking needs to be there, and to be successful, for me, a mantra for being successful as an entrepreneur is, after taking risk, you need to burn your bridges for going back to wherever you came from. Because if you've got that bridge still there, a time would come when you would turn back and go back to their normal cocoon life there. So apart from taking risk, you need to be very persistent, obstinate. I mean, persistent to the limit of being an obstinate. That you don't, if you've got into it, you need to make sure that it works, it will work. So that are the 3 or 4 main attributes. But then you could also, on a micro level, if you see, communications is one aspect that is largely being ignored by the entrepreneurs. I can't say the entrepreneurs of now, because the 10 years back when I graduated, communications was a big challenge, and I could gather that a couple of job interviews that I lost, even when I was shortlisted, was because of a weak communication skills. So I thought, I mean, just being into job, you need to have communication skills. No. Once you are into your business, you need to have exceptional communication skills. And not only speaking English or Hindi. Communication does mean that you connect to the core of the other person. At times, people confuse it with what we say is English diarrhea. But then communication is actually being connecting to the person, to actually see what he's not trying to say, but you could actually gauge what he's trying to say and what his inhibitions are. Because you can't afford, as an entrepreneur, you can't afford to devote time, a large amount of time, just by going back and forth to the same person for the same problem. So communicating your idea again is a skill. Because you might have a beautiful idea working for you. If you couldn't communicate it in similar beauty, you can't be successful there. So communication is again a micro level attribute that I would say is necessary for entrepreneurship, successful entrepreneurship. Another aspect is leadership, because once you, even if you've dedicated 20 years in the job on a higher pedestal, once you get into your own entrepreneurial enterprise, everything revolves around you. And that is the biggest challenge that I see when people from higher post retire and take premature retirement and get into the business. And there, in the job, your leadership is maybe limited to only one department or one aspect of business. But once you are into your own entrepreneurial venture, everything right from the operations part to the marketing part to the sales to giving your business plan and shape, everything requires your leadership. And that is something, again, an attribute because of which ventures fail. And that is something that is underrated. And once you start analyzing the failed ventures, you could find that consistently this one factor is one consistent factor that runs across all those failed ventures. And you can't, there another aspect of learning in MBA is also that it's a teamwork and all that. I'm sorry, sir, if I'm a bit anti, establishment. So many of my beliefs might not be true. I don't know. I'm not saying that my beliefs are true, but that might be contradictory to what you are trying to teach these people, these young brains. But teamwork is highly overrated. I personally feel. It's basically, especially in the venture itself, or maybe when you go out and in the job industry as well. There's nothing called teamwork. It's only the leadership, right? And because teamwork is something where accountability doesn't rest on anybody's shoulder, right? So it's only a leader's job to start off a venture. Because if you are able to shoulder all the responsibility and if you are confident enough to take the responsibility of any backfire or any eventuality, only then can you be a good entrepreneur. I'm not saying every entrepreneur has this as a successful idea behind it. But personally, I've seen this, and personally, I've felt this. So I don't see an idea clicking and taking the way like maybe Windows. Why do you hear Bill Gates associated to Windows or Steve Jobs associated to Apple? It's not one person. It's a big entity, but it's because of the leadership of these people that these corporations are where they are now. So leadership is something that you need to come out with, and it's not that your 100% decision would always be right, but you need to raise your hand whenever the opportunity comes in. So leadership is one aspect I think that needs to be looked into when you start off any venture of yours. Another two aspects that I see are adaptability. That especially for an entrepreneur, you need to be very flexible and adaptable. Flexibility is a virtue that can be shared by people in the jobs. They can be flexible. But then for an entrepreneur, you need to be adaptable. Because once you get into business, once you start meeting people, once you are showcasing your product and ideas, there would be ideas running to you that you need to do this, you need to customize this, and why don't you do such and such things. So if you're not adaptable to those challenges, the bigger chance is that you might leave behind in the race of getting that business turned up. So these are the key attributes of an entrepreneur for me. Now, you've got any other questions before I move to the next section of it? Okay. Pardon? Now, coming back to the question of why are you, in the first place sitting here and listening to a person like me? What are the reasons to become an entrepreneur? Why should you become an entrepreneur rather than going to for a high paid and a white collar job? And there could be a number of things: satisfaction, independence, pride, and all that. But for me, as an individual, I think first that comes to my mind is pride, and second is that I always want, as an entrepreneur, to do something that nobody else is doing. And